Hello, everybody. So, as you guys already know, my name is Heavenly Reenactors, and today we're going to be talking about ghost experience. Today with me, I have my special guest. Her name is, do you want to go by?
I'll go by Panda.
Okay, so Panda. I've known Panda for a very, very long time. How long have we known each other?
Over 15 years now.
Oh, over 15 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So so we've known each other for 15 years. We've obviously had quite a few experiences together. We've known each other for a while. Now, you have experiences of your own, and one of those stories you've told me, I don't remember it right offhand, and I'm interested in hearing your story. And you can elaborate. You could be as detailed as you need. That's perfectly fine. Also, just so everybody's aware, please ignore what's in the background. That would be very much appreciated. So go ahead and tell us your experience.
So I don't remember exactly how old I was at the time. Basically, to set the stage, my family is from West Virginia on my father's side. And I would go back out there a lot, like once or twice a year. And one of the times I went out there, it was my great uncle. He was dating a woman who had bought this big old manor. And
basically like a mansion.
yeah,
essentially.
a Civil War era mansion. And come to find out through the history and learning about it, that the mansion was the home of Ulysses S. Grant's aunt.
Who again?
Ulysses S. Grant. He was a general in the Civil War.
You know, it's so funny that you say that because, like, I think I don't even know how to spell his name, but I think that person's been mentioned before on a couple of like actual ghost investigators, and so that's the reason why as soon as you said that, I was like, wait, what? Okay. Anyway, so continue.
Yeah. So it was his aunt's house. And the lady who bought it, like I said, was my great uncle's girlfriend at the time. We'll call her girlfriend. She bought it and started renovating it into a home for the elderly. And this house was absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, if you guys see Daniel walking around in the background in his robe, just don't mind him. He's just doing his thing. Continue.
It was laid out in a square, basically. You would walk in the front door, and there was the staircase going up to the second and third floors. And then there was a parlor, a living, another room. At the very back of the house was the kitchen. And there were four or five bedrooms upstairs. I can't exactly remember. Again, this has been a long time ago. And I've had a couple experiences in this house. One was before it was completely renovated. It was just bought. So for the age of the house, it looked good. But it was very obviously an old house.
Very obviously an old house for sure.
And so we were going on a tour through the house, and they were describing what they were wanting to do with the place, the renovations and everything. And then we got up to the second floor, and there was this one room that I very vividly remember that it faced the front lawn if you looked out the windows. And as soon as I got close to that room and everything, I absolutely did not want to step in that room.
So basically, like, you had intuition, like a gut feeling, like, hey, like, this is not a room that you should be in.
Yeah, I started feeling nauseous, and like the hairs on my arm stood up, and like I felt on edge.
So would you say that, like, would you say that you were feeling, like, example, like with a malevolent spirit, or like a spirit that was like just there but just didn't want to be bothered?
Looking back, it felt more like something or someone who didn't want to be bothered. Like, the easiest term that I can think of was fight or flight.
Right.
And I just wanted to not be anywhere near that room. I could be a few feet outside the door, and that's as far as I could go.
Jeez.
And to this day, I still don't know what the inside of that room looks like. But
do you like recall like what time of the day this was? Like what time it was?
This was the middle of the day.
So just straight up middle of the day.
It was just straight up middle of the day. Okay. And my family had continued through and everything. And by the time we finished the tour, everything, we had even gone up to the attic and gone down. One thing I learned later on, and this was way later after they had finished the renovations and everything, that that room had a name.
Oh, so basically this was a common experience, like a common thing that kept happening.
Yeah, this was a common experience. So that was the, I guess, suicide room.
Oh, geez.
I remember what it was called, but it had a name. It was not a very fun one.
So basically, just given the track history of like the house and etc., essentially they had given it a name, which was essentially like what, the suicide room.
Yeah.
And okay.
I didn't know any of the history behind it, but I did find out later on, after it was turned into a care center, like a nursing home, that anyone who was put in that room did not last long.
Jeez.
Every other room in the house, people were there for long periods of time before they either passed or went to hospice or anything like that. But that one room, people did not last in that room long. They were there for, if I remember correctly, like maybe the longest was a month before they passed.
Jeez. So basically it was just kind of like, hey, like if you make it into this room, just FYI, you're probably not going to like come out of the room.
Yeah. And it was never told to any of the patients or their families, obviously, because they didn't want to scare them away from there.
Right.
But I believe that later on that people who were worse off and stuff, that was the room that if they wanted to make a passing easier, or if something was happening like cancer or anything, like they were placed in that room.
So from what it sounds like that room was most likely, over time, it was conditioned with patients that essentially knew that they were going to be passing and were in a situation where it was just kind of like, hey, you know, so they were probably feeling a lot of different emotions, feelings like sorrow, loss, etc. So it would make sense that like that room would be tainted in some way, shape, or form with some type of energy, regardless if it's negative or not. But I'm sure that there's probably some people that are still in that room that probably want to be left alone.
Yeah. And the one thing I very vividly remember about that room, even though I never went in, but looking in from the doorway, it was bright yellow.
What do you mean? Like the
paint on the room was bright yellow.
Like bright, really kind of like a smoker's room almost?
No, it was like the walls were painted yellow. But from the outside, it looked like a nice, comforting, inviting room.
Right.
But for anyone who, I guess I would say, would be sensitive or anything, like that was not a room anyone wanted to go close to.
I mean, my personal thought is like, if I walked into a room and it's bright yellow, I would be nauseous. That's my first thought. It would make me nauseous. So you never like spent like the night in the house?
No.
So you just went in. They were wanting to do like renovations and stuff. Did they ever end up like living in the house?
So they did the renovations and everything, and after the renovations were done, that's when they actually turned it into the care house. So it wasn't a care house beforehand. I believe it sat empty for a long time before it was bought. So, and I've had a couple of things happen at that house. So.
Well, I mean, compared, there's no comparisons to it, right? It's like everybody has like their own experience, especially with dealing with anything like paranormal. Like, don't get me wrong, like there's people out there, like, just as well as I know, there's plenty of people out there, like, Zach Bagans from Ghost Adventures. There's also Dakota from Destination Fear, and his entire group of people. They investigate, but then there's stories of individuals like yours and mine and so many others that their stories go unnoticed.
Mhm.
And there's the seeking of like, oh, I want to seek out this information for myself, and then there's also those that want to express their experiences, because for people like you and I, we're open-minded to the experience that like this stuff is real.
Mhm.
Like, hey, I've had this experience, I've seen this happen. Like, you don't need to watch a documentary to see it. But the whole reason why, you have like shows that are out there that do these investigations is because those individuals have had experiences and they want to seek it out. They want to see, they want to understand more about their experience,
Mhm.
and they want to prove that what they saw was basically factual.
Yeah.
Because like example, it would be like, hey, your experience and what you felt, inspired you to seek out more and more situations that it's like, hey, I want to seek out the knowledge to prove that what I experienced is real and that I'm not crazy.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people do. But okay. So was there anything else that had happened in that house? Like any other times that you were there?
There was another thing that happened, and it was actually a combination of inside and outside the house.
Mm.
The property itself was large. It had an old servants' quarters on it in the very back corner. And after the renovations had gotten done and everything, there was a point where we had I had gone with my family, and the owner had brought in Civil War reenactors on the property and everything as I think it was more like a family reunion, if I can
Like
remember.
kind of like a family reunion / tribute type thing, right?
I can't remember the exact reason why it was, like, why we were there and why that was going on. I just remember that there were Civil War reenactors on the property and everything, and they weren't allowed to go in the main house. They could go in the back in the kitchen and everything to like use the restroom or prep or
Right.
anything. And they were set up all throughout the property with like the tents, the costumes, the cookware and stuff. And I remember I told my family, my grandparents, I was going into the house because I had to use the restroom.
Uh-huh.
And we could go in the main house, no problem.
Right.
And I had gone in there and I had decided to just go to the upstairs bathroom. It was easier than walking all the way to the very back.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was walking in, I noticed two people down the hall that looked like Civil War reenactors. And I'm like, first thought in my head was, they're not supposed to be in here.
Right.
They were told not to be in the main house. They could go into the kitchen, which was almost a complete separate building and everything, but they couldn't be in the main house.
So from what I'm gathering is basically what you were seeing was not living people, essentially.
Later on, it was very much that I found out it was not actual people, because found out later on everyone was accounted for.
Oh my gosh. So and my thought too is like, so some of the research and things that I've even looked at over the years about Civil War stuff is like, obviously that war was extremely bloody.
Yes.
We all know that. And bringing in Civil War reenactors, right? So what is that going to do? Like, it's going to stir up some stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's going to stir up some energy. It's going to stir up, anything that has happened, it's going to bring something up.
Yeah.
And to even back up those claims, there is shows that it's out there
mm-hmm.
that have done those investigations around the Civil War era, and they have brought in reenactors to shoot, their weapons of that time, all different kinds of stuff to try to stir up activity so they could document it.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that, like, if Civil War reenactors were brought in for a family get together or anything like that, incidentally, you stirred up activity.
Yeah. And again, like, I didn't find out till I had gone back out and everything that everyone was accounted for. Like, all of their reenactors were out there.
Right.
And so when I was going in, it was just one of those things, okay, I've got to go to the bathroom. And it was just a quick glance.
Right.
But it was long enough for me to be like.
So, like, out of that glance experience, like, did any of them, like, see you? Did any of them, like, look at you? Like, did you make eye contact with them? Like, was their backs turned to you? Was there any type of, like, inkling that said, like, there was some type of human reaction as far as, like, anything?
No, there wasn't, like, anything looking at me. It was basically just, like, because it was two people that I remember seeing, a man and an older woman. And I remember them just walking across my field of view, like, in another room. Just like if you're walking past someone that's, like, right in here kind of way. And I didn't think too much of it, like I said. So I went to the bathroom, came out later, found out that no, everyone was accounted for. No one went in the house. And I was very much creeped out because I was like, there were two people in the house, and I was the only one in the house at that point. My family members were outside, everything, and
I mean, rightfully so. I would have been creeped out too, given, like, the situation. Like, reminds me of an experience that I had out there at my grandmother's house. Do you remember what I told you about what happened at my grandma's house before we moved into that house?
Which time?
So the people that owned the house before my grandma did?
No.
And what happened inside the house?
No.
Okay. So we're going to have to talk about that probably in the next episode.
Okay.
So anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you guys can soon, I've heard your guys' complaints. You guys can soon find me on Spotify. You guys can find me on Apple Podcasts as well as here on YouTube. If you guys have anything or any type of suggestions, or if you have a ghost experience that you would like to tell, please send me an inbox. I am happy to set up any type of, like, meeting with you if you happen to be in the Oklahoma area, if you want to take and sit down and tell your story, or if you want to send me your story, I'm willing to read it back as if it's like a story. Other than that, Panda. And oh, by the way, you guys can catch her on Talks with Heavenly because we're going to be doing that here in a couple of seconds. She's probably got some embarrassing stories to tell about me. So tune in for that as well. Anyways, ta-ta!